Harry Kazianis, Director of Defense Studies at the Center for the National Interest. This is troubling because you have to take regional concerns into the whole vision here. Where does this put the United States? I mean, our president is strong on this issue. If Israel is in further danger, what happens next?
Well, Harris, I have a good idea that the Iran deal is probably dead. I think the only question here is what date you actually stamp on the tombstone. I think the Trump administration's been pretty clear from really since the campaign that this isn't a deal that they like. And it's pretty obvious why they don't like it. In fact, Boris Johnson today probably made the case on Fox and Friends why we should leave the deal.
Exactly.
I mean, the sunset provisions, essentially Iran gets to leave the deal in 2025. And don't think for a second that Iran's going to try and renegotiate some new deal then. I think what they're going to do is they're probably going to sprint to build nuclear weapons for the same reasons the North Koreans have nuclear weapons, because it guarantees their security. And I think also the Iranians were very smart in the deal to make sure that there's no restrictions on the ability for them to build missiles. Don't think for a second that the Iranians aren't probably getting technology from the North Koreans that they could buy to build ICBMs and then mate them with a nuclear weapon in the future. So I think all this is just really fake news and fake debate. That the deal is dead.
You know, it's so interesting because I watched that interview with Boris Johnson, and I kind of had a very similar takeaway as you're describing, that he was kind of enumerating why we should exit the deal. Harry, do you think it's kind of been already factored in Europe that, hey, the United States is going to step away, and that's why we heard from Rouhani today that, you know, maybe we would consider staying in the deal even if the United States exits?
I think so. And I mean, Rouhani and the Europeans could have their own side deal or something like that. But I think what we have to remember, Harris, it's the United States that's the one who really has the ball in its court. If we decide to scrap the deal and we impose sanctions on the Iranians again, I think the Iranians really have to be careful here. There already is a lot of pressure on their economy. They're already under, you know, intense domestic problems. They've had a number of different riots and challenges over the last few months. In fact, there's more riots today in different parts of the country. People are very upset about wages, about their economic future. And I think in a lot of respects, a lot of Iranians are waking up to the fact that this regime just isn't keeping the promises that it's made over the last, 20, 30, 40 years. So I think people there are starting to wake up. And I think Iran has to be very careful about what it's trying to do, because it's just a bad actor. So
wow, it's so interesting to hear you set a bar in that country for a dictatorship. I mean, I would expect that bar to be pretty low anyway. Yeah, I mean, I don't have people standing along the roadside saying they're not keeping their promises, but I hear you. Can we talk a little bit? I want to get back to the news that Benjamin Hall was telling us about just moments ago, because it is different. We're not just an ally, but a friend in Israel. Here's from Iran: we're getting ready to attack you. And on May 12th, by the way, there's a deadline that the president may decertify the Iran deal. Talk to me about how those components go together and what we maybe need to do at this point to even reassure Israel.
Well, look, if the Iranians ever thought about attacking Israeli territory and a kinetic strike that is, attributed 100% to Iran, that would be near suicide for a lot of different reasons. I think first what the Israelis would do is say, well, there's no restrictions on us anymore from attacking what's there of Iran's nuclear program, and they'd probably wipe out large sections of it, which is, I don't think, something in the Iranian interest. I think what happens, Harris, a lot of times the Iranians talk big, they have all these grandiose ideas of what they can do and what their regional power is, and they're certainly a rogue state. But I don't think there's any way that Iran would attack Israel, because that would literally open Pandora's box for them, and Israel would strike and strike very aggressively, and the United States would most likely back that up and probably sell Israel all of our best bunker-busting bombs and things that could do a lot of damage to Iran's nuclear program. So that would be a big mistake.
I was fascinated by what you said in terms of why Iran might even do a side deal with some of these other countries. It's about security, but it's also about money.
Exactly.
Harry Kazianis, it's always great to see you. Thank you very much for the conversation.
Thanks for inviting me.